They didn't ask him if he was ready. They didn't ask his mother if she agreed. They just handed the boy the sheet music. It was the hardest piece on the program. A piece most students his age weren't even allowed to touch. The teachers whispered first. Then they laughed. Softly, confidently. A simple woman's son won't get past the first page. His mother stood near the wall, hands folded, eyes down. She didn't argue. She never did. The boy sat at the piano in silence, feet barely reaching the pedals, fingers resting still on the keys. One teacher leaned in and said it out loud, for everyone to hear. This will be a good lesson. Some people need to know their limits. The room waited for the mistake, for the collapse, for the proof that they were right. No one noticed the boy take a slow breath. No one recognized the calm. And no one realized they were about to witness the one thing they never expected, because they thought they were forcing him to fail. They had no idea they were about to expose a virtuoso. They called it a favor when they summoned her to the school auditorium. A chance, they said, an opportunity her son should be grateful for. She arrived early, as she always did, holding her worn handbag close, shoes cleaned the night before, hair pulled back without ceremony. She took a seat in the third row, not too close, not too far. Close enough to see her son's hands, far enough not to be noticed. Around her, parents spoke in confident voices. They discussed private tutors, competitions, scholarships abroad. Their laughter carried easily, as if the room belonged to them by default. She smiled politely when spoken to and nodded more than she talked. It was safer that way. Her son sat on the stage bench, waiting. His feet did not fully reach the pedals. He did not fidget. He did not look around. He stared at the closed piano lid as if it were something fragile. One of the teachers adjusted the microphone and cleared her throat. She did not look at the boy when she spoke. She looked at the other teachers. "We'll proceed with the advanced demonstration piece," she announced. "It's important students understand what true difficulty looks like." Another teacher leaned over and whispered, not quietly enough, "This one will struggle." A few chuckles followed. They were not cruel laughs. They were worse, certain laughs, the kind that assumed agreement. The mother's fingers tightened around her bag. She had heard that sound before, at hospitals, at offices, at places where people decided things about her without asking. The teacher on stage picked up a stack of sheet music and walked toward the piano. She placed it in front of the boy with a sharp tap, as if anchoring it there. "This is well beyond your current level," she said, "but you insisted on participating, so we'll see how far you get." The boy looked up. "I didn't insist," he said quietly. The teacher smiled without warmth. "Then take it as a learning experience." The mother opened her mouth. She closed it again. Her voice had learned to disappear in rooms like this. Every time she spoke up in the past, it had been framed as ignorance, emotion, misunderstanding. She had learned the cost of being labeled difficult. The piece sat on the stand, dense with notes, thick chords, rapid runs, page after page that intimidated even trained eyes. A piece reserved for competitions, not classrooms. A man in the front row leaned back and crossed his arms. "This is unfair," he muttered, though his tone suggested interest rather than concern. Another parent replied, "Rules are rules." The boy placed his hands in his lap. He did not touch the keys. He did not look at the music. He breathed in, slow and steady. One teacher frowned. "Well, begin." The boy glanced toward the audience just once. His eyes found his mother. She met his gaze and nodded. Not encouragement, not pressure, just presence. "I'm here." He turned back to the piano. The teacher sighed loudly. "If this is too much, you may stop at any time." The boy nodded. "Yes, ma'am." The teachers stepped aside. They expected noise. They expected chaos. Fingers slipping. Wrong entries. A public unraveling that would justify the lesson they believed they were teaching. Instead, the boy lifted his hands and placed them on the keys with care. That alone caused a pause. There was something deliberate in the way he adjusted the bench. Something practiced in the way he aligned his shoulders. Small details easily missed except by those who knew what to look for. The mother noticed. Her breath caught, just slightly. The boy did not start playing. One of the teachers leaned toward another. "Stage fright," she whispered. The boy closed his eyes. In his mind, there was no auditorium, no teachers, no laughter. There was only the piano at home, the one with the chipped corner. The one he played late at night when his mother thought he was asleep. The one that never judged him for starting over. He opened his eyes. The first note rang out. It was clean, centered, unmistakably intentional. A few heads turned. The second note followed, then the third. Not rushed, not tentative. Each one placed as if he knew exactly where it belonged. The teacher's smile faded, just a little. The piece unfolded slowly at first, the opening lines shaped with restraint. The boy did not attack the keys. He guided them. His hands moved with an ease that did not match his age. The murmurs in the room quieted. The mother sat perfectly still. She did not clap. She did not smile. She held her breath the way she had learned to do years ago, during moments that could be taken away if acknowledged too soon. One teacher stepped closer to the piano, brows knitting. "This section is impossible for him," she whispered. The boy reached that section. He did not hesitate. His fingers crossed and lifted and returned with precision. The notes flowed not mechanically, but with shape, with intention, as if he were telling a story he had told many times before. Someone in the back row whispered, "Who taught him?" No one answered. The mother lowered her eyes. She had never told the school about the old upright piano, about the neighbor who had once been a concert accompanist, about the nights spent listening from the kitchen, afraid to interrupt. On stage, the boy continued. The teachers stood frozen. What was meant to be a lesson had become something else entirely. And the piece was only just beginning. By the time the boy reached the second movement, the room no longer breathed the same way. The quiet was different now. Not polite, not forced, attentive. A teacher glanced toward the auditorium doors, as if expecting someone important to walk in and explain this away. No one did. The boy's hands moved faster now, but not wildly. Every motion was controlled, economical. His wrists stayed loose. His shoulders stayed calm. Nothing about him suggested struggle. The teachers had expected tension. They were seeing confidence. "This doesn't make sense," one of them whispered. The mother heard it. She kept her eyes forward. She had learned that when authority grew confused, it often looked for someone smaller to blame. The music thickened. Dense chords filled the room, rolling forward with weight and clarity. The boy leaned in slightly, not from effort but from intention. He listened to himself, adjusted, corrected in real time. A few parents shifted in their seats. The man in the front row uncrossed his arms. "That passage," someone murmured. "Most seniors struggle with that." The boy did not struggle. He did not rush. He did not show off. He treated the difficult parts the same way he treated the simple ones. With respect. With patience. A teacher stepped back, her heels clicking sharply against the floor. She folded her clipboard against her chest as if it could protect her from what she was witnessing. "He hasn't missed a note," she said. Another teacher replied, "That's not the point." But it was. They just did not want it to be. The mother's heart beat hard against her ribs. She remembered the first time she had heard him play like this. Years ago, late at night, one wrong chord away from discovery. She had stood in the hallway, afraid to breathe, afraid someone would knock and tell them to stop. She had never told him how much she knew. The boy reached a transition, one of the most dangerous moments in the piece, where timing collapsed for the unprepared, where hands tangled and confidence broke. The teachers leaned forward as one. The boy softened the sound. He did not fight the piano. He let it speak. The melody rose, then fell, guided carefully through the shift. His fingers barely lifted from the keys, conserving motion, conserving energy. A gasp escaped someone near the aisle. The mother closed her eyes for half a second. Not in prayer, in recognition. She had seen this before. Not here. Not in a room like this. On stage, the boy opened his eyes and looked at the music for the first time. Not to read, to acknowledge it. Then he looked back at the keys. The teachers exchanged glances. One whispered, "He knows this." Another whispered, "He's memorized it." "No," the first said, "he understands it." That difference unsettled them more than any mistake would have. The boy moved into the most technically demanding section, the one they had chosen specifically to expose him. Rapid passages, wide leaps, no room for error. His hands blurred, but the sound remained clear. Notes landed exactly where they should. Accents shaped the phrase. Dynamics rose and fell with intention. This was not survival. This was interpretation. parent stood up without realizing it, then sat back down quickly, embarrassed. The teachers stopped taking notes. One of them reached for her phone, then thought better of it. The mother felt the room turning. She had felt it before too. That subtle shift when judgment faltered and curiosity crept in. When people began to realize they had miscalculated. She also knew what often came next. Doubt would try to reclaim control. He's probably been coached specifically for this, one teacher muttered. Yes, another replied. A trick, a novelty. They said the words quietly, but not quietly enough. The boy did not hear them, or if he did not respond. His focus did not break. His breathing stayed steady. He moved through the storm of notes as if he had been waiting for it. The music swelled. The room leaned in. Even the teachers could not deny it anymore. This was not a child forcing his way through a difficult piece. This was a musician guiding the piece through him. One teacher whispered, almost to herself, "Where did he learn this?" The mother pressed her lips together. She remembered the sacrifices, extra shifts, quiet dinners, the way she pretended not to notice the blisters on his fingers, the way she pretended not to understand the words he used when he talked about music. She had let him have this. She had protected it by staying silent. On stage, the boy reached the end of the section they had expected to break him. He did not slow. He did not pause. He turned the page. That simple motion sent a ripple through the room. The teachers stiffened. "There's still more," one said. "Yes," another replied. "And the ending is worse." The boy began the final build. Power filled the auditorium. Not loudness, presence. The kind that made people sit straighter without knowing why. The mother felt tears rise. She did not wipe them away. The teachers stood frozen, watching something they had not planned, not controlled, not approved. They had intended to teach him a lesson. Instead, he was teaching the room. And the final movement had not yet arrived. The final movement began without warning. No dramatic pause. No hesitation. The boy drove forward, and the piano answered him fully now. The sound filled every corner of the auditorium. Not chaotic, not forced, but alive. Each phrase carried weight, shaped by intention rather than speed. The teachers no longer whispered. They stood in a line near the stage, hands clasped, shoulders tense. What had started as a demonstration had escaped them. There was no stopping it now without admitting something far worse than misjudgment. One teacher cleared her throat. "He's deviating slightly," she said. Another replied, "No, he's interpreting." That word settled heavily between them. The boy's feet reached for the pedals with confidence that had not been there when he first sat down. His body moved with the music now, not dramatically, not for show, but in quiet coordination. Breath and motion aligned. Sound followed naturally. A parent near the back leaned toward another and whispered, "This isn't student playing." The whisper traveled. The mother sat still, her spine straight, her hands resting flat against her knees. She did not allow herself to look at the teachers. She kept her eyes on her son, the way she had learned to do when the world grew unpredictable. The piece climbed toward its most punishing section. Octaves thundered. The left hand anchored while the right soared. Many performers rushed here, afraid of losing control. The boy slowed. Not enough to break the flow, just enough to let the music breathe. He carved space where there should have been panic. A teacher inhaled sharply. "He's choosing the tempo," she said. "Yes," another answered. "And it's working." They had taught this piece for years. They knew its traps. They knew how it swallowed egos whole. Watching a child navigate it with restraint unsettled them more than brilliance ever could. The audience no longer shifted. No coughing. No restless movement. Phones remained untouched. Even those who did not understand music felt the gravity of what was happening. The boy reached a quiet passage. A deceptive calm before the storm. His fingers softened, barely brushing the keys. The sound thinned, turned inward. The mother felt her chest tighten. This was always the hardest part. Not technically, emotionally. The place where confidence could slip if doubt crept in. The boy did not doubt. His gaze stayed low, fixed on the keys, but his awareness filled the room. He listened to the resonance fade. He waited for the exact moment to continue. The pause held. Then he released the next phrase. It rose gently at first, then grew, unfolding with inevitability. The final ascent began. One teacher whispered, "He's not afraid." Another replied, "He shouldn't be able to do this." The boy's hands accelerated, yet never lost clarity. Notes rang clean, chords struck true, power surged without harshness. This was not someone proving himself. This was someone speaking fluently. The mother's eyes blurred. She let the tears fall now, quietly, without sound. She remembered the nights when neighbors complained, the days when teachers suggested he focus on something practical, the meetings where she was told talent without pedigree rarely went far. She had nodded. She had thanked them. She had gone home and said nothing. On stage, the boy approached the final run, the passage that terrified even seasoned pianists, a relentless cascade of sound that demanded both strength and control. The teachers braced. The boy smiled, just slightly, not toward the audience, toward the keys. His hands flew. The sound exploded outward, rich and commanding. The piano seemed larger than itself, transformed by his touch. Each note landed with certainty. No blur, no chaos, only momentum. A gasp rippled through the room. The boy reached the final chords. He did not slam them. He placed them. The last note rang out and held, vibrating through the hall, through the seats, through the people who had come expecting a lesson in failure. Silence followed. Not polite silence. Not confused silence. Reverent silence. The boy's hands remained on the keys until the sound fully disappeared. Then he lifted them and rested them in his lap. He did not look up. No one moved. The teachers stared at him as if seeing him for the first time. Not as a student, not as a mistake, but as something they had not prepared for. Finally, someone stood. Then another. Applause erupted, sudden and overwhelming. Not scattered, unified. People clapped with urgency, as if afraid the moment might vanish if they stopped. The boy flinched at the noise, just a little. The mother stood slowly, her legs unsteady, her heart pounding. She clapped too, not loudly, not to be seen, but because she could no longer hold the pride inside her. On stage, the boy finally looked up. His eyes met the teacher's, and for the first time they had nothing to say, because the music had already said it all. The applause did not fade quickly. It lingered, uneven at first, then steady, then relentless. Teachers who had once folded their arms now stood stiffly, clapping because not clapping would have meant admitting something out loud. Parents who had whispered earlier now looked at the boy openly, their expressions recalibrating in real time. The boy stood when the teacher gestured for him to. He bowed once, not deeply, not theatrically, just enough to acknowledge the sound without inviting it. Then he stepped back from the piano. That was when the discomfort truly began. One teacher reached for the microphone, then stopped. She cleared her throat twice before speaking. "Well," she said, forcing a smile. "That was unexpected." The word hung awkwardly in the air. Another teacher joined her, voice sharper, more defensive. "We need to remember this was an informal setting, a demonstration, not an audition." A few people shifted. The applause slowed, then stopped. The boy remained still. He did not return to the bench. He did not move toward his mother. He waited. The mother felt a familiar tightening in her chest. This was the part she knew. The moment after praise, when authority reasserted itself. When rules were suddenly remembered. One teacher flipped through her clipboard, as if searching for language that could put everything back into place. "You understand," she said, directing her voice toward the boy but glancing at the audience, "that talent alone doesn't replace structured training." The boy nodded politely. "Yes, ma'am." Another teacher added quickly, "And discipline. Discipline is essential." "Yes, ma'am," the boy repeated. The mother closed her eyes briefly. She had heard this before too. Compliments wrapped in warnings. Recognition followed by containment. A man in the audience raised his hand halfway, then lowered it when no one acknowledged him. The teachers continued. "This piece is typically reserved for advanced conservatory students," one said. Its inclusion today was irregular. Irregular. Not remarkable. Not extraordinary. The boy listened without reacting. His face remained calm, neutral, the same face he wore when adults spoke over him. The mother stood slowly. Her movement was small, but it drew attention. Perhaps because she had been invisible until now. Perhaps because something in the room had already shifted. She did not raise her hand. She simply spoke. "My son practices every day," she said. Her voice was steady, not loud, not apologetic. A teacher turned toward her, surprised. Yes, we understand parental pride, she began. The mother continued. He practices before school, after school, late at night. He practices when he is tired, when he is frustrated, when he thinks no one is listening. The room quieted again. I don't know all the names you use for things, she said. I don't know the rules the way you do, but I know discipline. One teacher stiffened. Ma'am, this isn't. He learned on a piano with broken keys, the mother said. He learned without tutors until recently. He learned because he loves it. The teacher faltered. The mother did not raise her voice. She did not accuse. She stated facts the way one did when they could no longer be ignored. You said this piece would teach him his limits, she added. I think it taught all of us something else. Silence followed. Heavy, uncomfortable. A teacher laughed lightly, attempting to dissolve the tension. Well, no one is denying the boy has potential. Potential. The boy looked down. The mother looked directly at the teachers. He doesn't need potential, she said. He needs honesty. The audience watched closely now. This was no longer about music. One teacher adjusted her posture. We have procedures, she said. Pathways. Yes, the mother replied. And sometimes you close them without noticing. Another teacher stepped forward, voice tight. You should be grateful we allowed him to perform at all. The boy flinched, just slightly. The mother noticed. She took a breath. He didn't ask to be tested, she said. You chose that. The teacher opened her mouth, then closed it. The man from the front row stood again, this time fully. I came to watch students, he said. I did not expect to witness something like that. No one stopped him. I don't know your policies, he continued, but I know excellence when I hear it. A murmur of agreement rippled through the audience. The teachers exchanged looks. One of them nodded stiffly. We will review this, she said. Review, delay, control. The boy finally looked toward his mother. She met his eyes and gave a small nod. Not victory, not defiance, just reassurance. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The teachers began ushering people out, voices polite, movements quick. The room emptied slowly, conversations hushed but intense. As the boy walked off the stage, one teacher stopped him. You should consider applying for the advanced program, she said, tone measured. If you qualify. The boy nodded. Yes, ma'am. He walked past her. Behind him, the piano sat silent, but the echo of what he had done lingered, pressing against the walls of the institution that had tried to measure him. And outside the auditorium, the mother reached for her son's hand. For the first time that day, he squeezed back. They waited in the hallway while the teachers spoke behind closed doors. No raised voices, no shouting, just the low murmur of people deciding things that mattered. The boy sat on the bench, feet swinging slightly now that the piano was gone. The tension had left his shoulders, replaced by a quiet exhaustion. He leaned his head back against the wall and closed his eyes. The mother stood beside him. She did not pace. She did not check the time. She had learned that patience was sometimes the only power she was allowed to keep. Other parents passed by, glancing at them with new expressions. Curious, respectful. A few smiled. One woman nodded as she walked past, as if acknowledging something long overdue. The door opened. 3 teachers stepped out. Their posture was different now. Straighter, careful. Please, one of them said. Come in. The mother hesitated for half a second. Then she placed a hand on her son's shoulder and guided him forward. They sat across from the teachers at a long table. Papers lay scattered, hastily rearranged. A cup of coffee had gone cold. One teacher cleared her throat. We owe you an apology, she said, eyes fixed on the table. The word landed heavily. The boy looked at his mother. She nodded once. We made assumptions, the teacher continued, about background, about access, about what was possible. Another teacher spoke next, voice more controlled. Your son's ability is exceptional, not potential, not promise. The mother folded her hands in her lap. Thank you, she said simply. The teachers exchanged glances. We would like to offer him placement in the advanced program, one said. Full scholarship. The boy's breath caught, just for a moment. The mother did not react immediately. She had learned to wait for the conditions. And, she asked, the teacher shifted. And we would like to provide proper instruction, mentorship, opportunities. The mother met her gaze. He already has discipline, she said. What he needs is respect. The teacher nodded. You're right. Silence followed. Not awkward, thoughtful. The boy spoke for the first time since sitting down. I just want to play, he said. The teachers looked at him, truly looked, as if recalibrating their understanding. You will, one said quietly. They signed the papers together. Not ceremoniously, not dramatically, just signatures on a page that changed a future. When they stepped back into the hallway, the mother exhaled fully for the first time that day. Outside, the sun was lower now, casting long shadows across the steps. The noise of the school carried on as if nothing had happened. The boy stopped at the door and turned back once. Mom, he said, did you know? She smiled softly. I knew you loved it, she said. That was enough. He nodded. Weeks passed. The advanced room was different, quieter, focused. The boy listened more than he spoke. He practiced longer than required. He absorbed everything. Some teachers watched him carefully now. Others avoided eye contact. A few treated him normally, which mattered most. The mother continued her routines. Work, home, practice sounds drifting through the walls at night. The piano still had chipped keys, but it sang anyway. One evening, after a long day, the boy stopped playing and turned toward the kitchen. Mom, he said, they asked where I learned. She smiled without looking up. What did you say? I said at home, he replied. She nodded. That's true. At the next recital, the auditorium was full again. This time, no one laughed. No one whispered. The boy walked on stage to applause already waiting. He sat at the piano. He played. And when the final note faded, the room rose as one. The mother clapped from the third row. Not too close. Not too far. Exactly where she had always been.